In today's episode 3 of the Idea to Value podcast, you're going to learn exactly what capabilities teams need to successfully innovate. Welcome to the Idea to Value podcast, where in every episode we highlight the latest insights into creativity and innovation from experts around the world. I'm your host, Nick Skillicorn. I care about the evidence behind what makes ideas happen, and I've already helped thousands of people just like you through my unique insights into recent scientific findings of how creativity works. I also show you how to turbocharge innovation programs so they finally deliver on the value and ideas you've been struggling to execute. Get your free training on how creativity can be improved by registering now at www.ideatovalue.com. Now let's get on with today's episode. Hello everyone, and welcome back to today's episode of the Idea to Value podcast with me, Nick Skillicorn. Now, in the previous episode, we started talking about what sort of things can help actually improve someone's ability to generate ideas. And obviously that's incredibly important when you're talking about improving someone's creativity. But what does it actually take to make someone more innovative? And specifically, what does it take for teams to be innovative in a company? So what I want to talk to you about today is all of the capabilities that I've discovered make up high-performing innovation teams. What sort of capabilities they need to actually do the work that they set out to do, and not only generate the right sorts of ideas, but actually execute on those ideas. And these are based on my 3 dimensions of innovation framework, which takes into account not only creativity, but the way that teams work together and the way that organizations support innovation. So let's get straight to it. There's 13 capabilities in total that we're going to talk about today. And the first one is methodology. A lot of people think that the most innovative companies are the ones that have the least restrictions around how you should be operating. And this is how they see a lot of startups operating, thinking that if you start a business in someone's garage, that it's ultimately going to become the next Pixar or the next Apple or the next IBM. And it's this freewheeling, loose attitude towards methodology that helps companies actually be innovative. Whereas in reality, it's actually the opposite. A lot of very established companies do suffer with methodology holding them back from innovating because they get a bit of tunnel vision around how projects are meant to be organized. This is something that I saw firsthand in my more than 7 years doing program management at one of the world's largest consulting companies. And essentially, large corporations that have lost their way with innovation often try to plan out large projects from start to finish and assume there's not going to be any deviation from that plan. And they'll actually have a day-by-day project plan of what needs to happen when. Now, unfortunately, in innovation projects, this is not how it actually works. Innovation needs to incorporate feedback from outside forces, feedback from the customer, experimentation to find the right solution while things are happening, and it doesn't lend itself from this plan from start to finish mindset and methodology. But that doesn't mean that a methodology isn't actually useful. You see, there are things like innovation program lifecycle methodologies and other innovation management methodologies that can actually really set in stone some structure that really helps teams know how to react to certain situations, how to experiment, how to go about making it part of the business, and really help them structure their innovation efforts. So if you get the right type of methodology on board, it can really strengthen a company's way of innovating and making sure there's a lot less risk around trying out new innovations and helping them succeed along the way. Now, the second capability is what I call focus on problem and solution. And this is something that a lot of startups actually struggle with. When a customer is looking for something that they find desirable, there actually needs to be a solution to a problem or a challenge that they're having. Quite often, startups, on the other hand, have this sort of reversed in their mindset where they've come up with a solution and are trying to find a problem that it's going to actually help with. This is something that's very pertinent in startups that are trying to create new platforms and assume that once a certain number of people are on the platform, they're going to get value out of it. Whereas what they need to be thinking instead is, how does this help each individual accomplish something? How does it help an individual actually overcome a challenge that they're already facing? And it doesn't necessarily need to be a challenge of difficulty. It can be a challenge of accessing something at a certain price point. It can be accessing something with a certain degree of ease of use for people who aren't used to a technology. It can be accessing it in an area where it wasn't previously available, or an industry where it wasn't previously available. But when an innovation really hits home, it's where it's addressing a specific challenge and providing a solution that wasn't previously there. The next capability number 3, is around experimentation and prototyping. This is all about the concept of failing early, failing cheaply, and failing often. You see, experimentation on your offering should begin early to help rapidly refine it by finding data and reasons for what actually improves the solution. A lot of people in more established companies have this fear of failure, but what they're actually fearing is the end result being a failure. When you're talking about experimentation and prototyping, failure is naturally part of experimentation, but instead of thinking of it as a failure, think of it as a learning step. Every time you try something new, you do an experiment or you do a prototype, and it doesn't work as anticipated, that's actually a good thing because it gives you information on how to improve it and finding reasons why it didn't work. And the more often you can do these small experiments, the smaller you can make them and the more frequent you can make them, the faster you're going to get all of the feedback that you need to come up to the final end solution that's actually the innovation that people want to buy. The next capability is around feedback incorporation, and this is about how you find out what your customers actually like or what they want. Again, a lot of established companies start asking customers if they like or are satisfied with a solution as being the feedback that they get. And unfortunately, this feedback is far too late because it happens at the end of the process. You've essentially given them something and then you ask them, do you like this or are you satisfied with it? Instead, if you can get feedback from trusted sources, such as the customer themselves, before the actual experimentation process is finished, you're much likely to get to the real crux of what they want and what they want the solution to do. So putting feedback incorporation as part of your innovation methodology really speeds up the whole process and avoids you going down rabbit holes and blind alleys that would otherwise take you in the wrong direction. The next capability, which really distinguishes a lot of the best innovation teams out there, is diversity in the team. The team you put together need to have complementary skills to one another, and this means not only having a mix of things like people who are better at dreaming versus doing, but also different backgrounds and mixing teams between projects to keep ideas flowing. There's a really excellent piece of research by Professor Brian Uzi from 2005, which looked at what made the highest performing creative teams, and he did this based on research he did into Broadway musicals, which often had a talent pool which was very limited and ended up having similar people working together over and over again. And he analyzed which people had worked together and how that resulted in success for the performance that they put on, both in box office receipts and reviews and all of those things. And what he found was, if you have approximately a 50-50 mix, 50% new people versus 50% people who'd worked together previously, it results in the highest level of creativity being executed. So what you want is people who are not always working together day in and day out for years and years on end. Every now and again you want to switch it up a bit, even if this builds what's called a bit of positive friction or constructive friction in the team. It helps keep ideas fresh, and it helps people from essentially becoming comfortable around each other's ideas and just reinforcing each other's ideas instead of generating new ideas over and over again. So diversity in team, both from the outset in things like recruitment and also continually changing things over time, is very good at improving your innovation capability. The next one is around evaluation of ideas. You see, not all ideas are going to be good, but even the good ones need to be prioritized to make sure resources and time are being used most effectively. This is why determining the evaluation criteria for what innovation success actually looks like at the beginning is vital, and it's something that most companies completely ignore, especially when they're generating ideas in something like a brainstorming session. They'll come out there and they'll say, okay, our purpose here is to just think of as many ideas as possible, without first thinking about what constitutes a good idea. If you spend a bit of time at the beginning setting your evaluation criteria, it not only helps evaluate the ideas that are generated, it actually helps shape the discussions that happen during these idea generation sessions. So setting out your evaluation criteria from the beginning is absolutely vital. The next capability is around the work environment itself. You see, the location and the design of the work environment can have a huge effect on how innovative the people working there can be. Everything from how distracting it is with noise levels in things like open offices, to how it affects the brain's ability to generate ideas, which is related to everything from how high the ceiling is, to how wide the walls are, to what the light levels are, to how different focus phases can happen in the brain. All affect not only how people can generate ideas, but more importantly, whether they can switch between generating ideas and actually refining those ideas, executing them, trying them out, and refining them again. It's this work environment needs to be able to have all of those benefits for teams and individuals, not just being what a lot of startups try and do, which is have foosball tables or bean bags or table tennis tables, and assuming those sorts of things are what actually generate great ideas and help them flourish. It's actually a lot more subtle. The next capability is that companies need to actually have the resources available for the teams to do their innovative work. Do your team members have the equipment, technology, facilities, budget, and corporate support they need to develop, design, experiment, and refine the innovations? Those things are absolutely vital, again, for innovation to actually flourish. And along those lines, the next capability is around the tools. So in addition to the resources, do the team members also have the tools and skills to make sure they are progressing, such as knowledge on how to collect the right information, or templates on how to plan ahead, or simple things like walls that are available for idea generation sessions? And again, building on those last two, the next capability is having time available. Not all innovations start as corporate strategies or come from ideation sessions. Some companies enable their staff to use some work time to develop ideas they think might be useful in the future, such as 3M being an amazing example of a company that allows their staff to spend about 15% of their work time generating their own ideas. Not only that, companies also need to realize that generating the ideas is not the same as actually executing innovation. Once ideas have been generated, people need the time after that to refine them, experiment, build prototypes, take them to market, try new things. That all takes time. The next capability number 11, is what I call cross-pollination. You see, often solutions to difficult challenges come from unexpected sources, such as someone from outside the team providing insight into how an equivalent challenge was solved by another team, another company, or a different industry. Cross-pollinating ideas in these ways between teams, either through things like having insight days or actually swapping out team members, can bring valuable new perspectives. Essentially, what you want to do is make sure that your team members are occasionally being given access to different points of view from either different knowledge leaders or even just different industries. And the way the brain works is it'll take these learnings and start adapting it to the challenges that it's working on itself. Cross-pollinating ideas like this has seen benefits across many different types of industries. The next capability, and I've alluded to this previously, is actually around brainstorming effectively. You see, what a lot of companies think of as traditional brainstorming sessions are actually terrible at producing actionable ideas. A lot of the time that in these sessions is used that doesn't actually deliver anything for the company, and especially bad are companies that list out huge numbers of ideas but then don't do anything with those ideas and they just get trapped in a spreadsheet somewhere. But when you run when these brainstorming sessions, or as I just call them, idea generation sessions, are run effectively, these sessions can produce huge numbers of refined ideas which actually address the challenge and meet the evaluation criteria that we alluded to previously. All of these things end up in companies that are better able to set out a challenge and actually get the most appropriate, creative, and original responses to it, rather than just rehashing previous ideas from failed previous attempts. And then the last capability that teams need in order to work is actually message and buy-in. And this is message and buy-in from leadership in the company. You see, innovations will never get off the ground if they aren't supported by a relevant leader in the organization. And getting the message of what the project aims to achieve right will facilitate getting buy-in for it right at the beginning stages. This is why a lot of people often feel frustrated when they have this great idea that they're trying to communicate and get support from their manager or from their CEO or someone, and they're finding it difficult to actually convey the reason why this is a good idea. Once you actually learn the skills around framing your messaging and framing how you talk about an idea, not talking about it as a final solution, but as the start of what will then evolve into the final solution, you'll become much better at getting the yes from these management people instead of getting the no that you're used to. Now, those are the 13 capabilities that really make up the high-performing innovation teams. I'll just go through them one more time. Methodology, focus on problem and solution, experimentation and prototyping, feedback incorporation, diversity in the team, evaluation criteria, the right work environment, having resources, tools, and time available, cross-pollination between the teams, brainstorming effectively, and getting the right message and buy-in. If you can get these capabilities ingrained in your team, it's going to really significantly improve your ability to actually get value out of the innovations that you try out. And in the next podcast episode, we're going to take this one step further and start talking about, at an organizational level with a company, what they need in order to support innovation and actually help it flourish in their companies. So stay tuned, and I look forward to teaching you more in that next episode. Thanks for listening. Today's episode was made possible by members of our premium Deep Creativity Training Program. For less than the price of half a candy bar per day, you too can get world-exclusive daily exercises which push your creativity past its comfort barrier to make you better able to generate ideas in all aspects of your life and work. Invest in yourself now by going to www.ideatovalue.com/deepcreativity and using coupon code PODCAST for 25% off your first order. And don't forget that if you found this episode interesting, to like and share it, and to leave us a review in your favorite podcast player. See you again in the next episode.